طيب الميتنج نمبر 6 او اللاب عفوا نمبر 6 هو الاكتيفيتي اللي محطوط بالLMS باسم meeting 7 activities. طيب so in this meeting you will have 4 parts, part A, B and C and D. As usual البارت النهائي the last part is the one it has the main methods which is gonna to call test shape and is gonna to have a main method to test part 1 A and B and C. In the first part they ask us to do interface, the second part to do abstract class, and the third part to do concurrent class which is a rectangle. تمام? So let's start to see what it is and how we can do it. I just need you to remember how the connection between the interface and the class happens. That I have a slow connection, so I'll just sometimes talk slowly to make sure that you get the right picture. Okay. So the class can implement the interface. Okay, so let me just move the mic. What about now? It's much better. طيب. So the class can implement the interface, and then class can extend from a class and can extend from another class. If you see the picture now here. Then the class can implement interface, will implement extend another interface. Okay. So you just need to remember another things that you need to remember. The interface can be implemented by many classes, and the same interface can be implemented by many classes, and the same class can implement many interface as well. However, the class can extend only one class at the end. تمام؟ طيب الآن الصوت أفضل؟ This is the big picture of the questions. We will have in a part A, we have to implement interface called colorful, and it has only one method called make it red. In part B, we're supposed to implement an abstract class called shape, and it's going to have a variable called high with a type integer. It is going to have a protected constructor. If you remember, hashtag main protected on the abstract class. And we're going to have set height, get height, and calculate the area to string method inside the shape abstract class. Later, this is for part A. Okay, sorry. So this is for part A and B. Then we will create a class called rectangle, and this class we're going to have a weight will color. We're going to have a constructor, which is a rectangle with a 0 argument, and the second one with 3 arguments. We're going to have a get weight will set width to string methods as well, which is an override and then an object class. What's important for us now in another rectangle class, it is going to implement the interface that we just created, the user-defined interface, which is colorful, and also it is going to implement built-in, it is gonna also to implement a built-in interface, which is comparable. If you remember, we already talked about this during the class. It's a built-in interface inside the Java, and it's going to inherit an abstract class. And the last things we're going to do, we're going to create two objects, R1 and R2, which is a type of rectangle. Inside the NetBeans, you will have the four classes, which is a colorful, and you see it's assigned with I. We're having a rectangle. We're going to have the shapes and a test shapes, which has the main methods. Okay, do you remember in the previous picture, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. Why here we have only 4 classes? We're going to implement 4 classes: colorful, rectangle, shape, or test shapes. However, you saw in the picture, we have another things interface, which is called comparable. Why we don't have it here? Anyone? Why we don't have a comparable interface inside our package that we are going to implement? Thank you, Bushra. Because it's a built-in interface inside the Java. So this one on the top, comparable, is a built-in interface. It's already implemented on the Java library. We don't need to implement it. We're just gonna to call it or use it by using implement keyword later. But we don't need to go and create a class for it, okay? So let's start with the first one. We're supposed to create an interface called colorful, and it has only a method called make it red. That make no arguments and return no value. So it's take no argument. So it has 0 arguments and return no value. It's just going to say, now my color is red. That's it. So how can we do this? We're going to do public interface and then the name of the method or the name of the interface, which is colorful. Inside it, we're going to put public void make it red. If you remember, we usually supposed to add one more word here. You're going to tell me which word we're supposed to add between the public and the void. The interface can hold only one type of a method. No, it's not static. Okay, good, Awad. We're supposed to put abstract because all the methods inside the interface is going to be abstract method all the time, and all variable going to be what? All variables, it is going to be what if it's inside the interface? No, it's not void. Final, something else. Final what? Public static final. Thank you. Yes, it's public static final. If we have a variable, it's going to be static final. It's constant. And if we're having a method, it's only abstract method. Okay. The second thing we're supposed to do, we're supposed to implement an abstract class called shape. And this abstract class is supposed to have a private attribute called high with a type integer, a zero argument constructor that creates initialized del high with a default value, and then this zero constructor gonna to invoke till one constructor. Okay, you need to be careful about what they are asking us to do. The third requirement is to create the one argument constructor, which is gonna to get an argument with a type what? Since it's gonna to get till high, the argument is gonna to be with which type? What's the data type of the argument of the constructor with one argument? Anyone? So what's the type of the argument? The first constructor is gonna to be it is gonna to be a zero argument constructor. The second one argument, so it's gonna to get one argument. What the type of the argument, what the data type is gonna to get n, pass n in this argument. Why it's integer? Why it's supposed to be integer? Why are we supposed to pass integer to one argument constructor here? عوض ولجان انتوا قلتوا ان هي is going to be integer. Exactly, Bushra. Because high is an integer. So that's why, and they ask us to initialize it with a high. So this is the value is going to be passed. Okay? Then, since we already, and this is important, the high is a private. That means the only one way to access this variable is defining a setter and getter for a high attribute. So that's why we need a setter and getter for a high. And then they ask us to create an abstract method called calculated area that has no argument, and it's calculate and return the area of the shapes. And the last things, this is we already did it several times in the previous lab. We override toString method to write specific things, which is a high equal to something. Okay. So this is the code of the part B. So shape is an abstract, so we're supposed to put public abstract class. Then we're going to create a private variable with a type integer high. We're going to create a zero argument constructor, which is in shapes. But they ask us to do one thing, if you remember. They ask us to invoke a one argument constructor inside a zero argument. And this is why we do this and we assign a 0. This is because they ask us to invoke one argument constructor, which is in the next one here. A shape with int a, that means when I do this 0, is going to send into this constructor. So a here is going to be 0, which is mean is going to assign a 0 to a high. So in any case that the user it creates an instance with a type shapes without sending any arguments, that's gonna to initialize the high with a value 0. And those are the set and get methods to set the high with the a, whatever we send from the main methods, and it can get the high to return it. Okay. So what's new for us based on what we did yesterday? creating an abstract method. So what's the abstract method here? It's calculate area. And you remember, the abstract method doesn't have any implementation. Then what is going to do? If the abstract method is calculated area because it has it under abstract class, right? So let's assume I'm using the calculate area. It doesn't have any implementation. What is going to do? It is going to go to the child if it has a child, and that's why you have to implement the abstract method inside the child or subclass and then get the implementation inside subclass. And the last thing is the override. When we override toString method, which is it's a method coming from which class? A toString. Coming from which class? And we're going to override it. Any other thoughts? So I will give an answer. Anyone think something else? So حنا نعمل override إذا كانت subclass trying to change the implementation of a method with the same signature. It has the same return, it has same arguments, same names, and we're trying to change the implementation, right? So this toString is coming from where? Okay, toString method coming from which class? So that means the shape has a parent. Yes, it has superclass. But what's the name of this superclass of the shape? That it has toString method. You can only override a method that is coming from a superclass now here. In this example, I'm talking about this example. So what is the superclass in this example, guys? Anyone? toString is a method from which class? No, it's not going to come. It's shapes is the subclass in this case because toString is already implemented before, but now shapes is going to override it. But there is a superclass for shapes, and I know this is a little confusing, but we already explained it. Already, if you would like to know who is the parent or who is superclass, you take a look to extend word and you see what's after that. But we talked about a class which is the main, the root class on Java, that all built-in Java class and all user-defined class are under this class. في عندنا كلاس موجود هو جد الأجداد إلى كل الكلاسات اللي موجودة بالجافا، اللي راح تكون مبنية بالجافا أو اللي أنت تعملها راح تكون ضمنيا أبناء إلى هذا الكلاس. Which class? ضمنيا. Okay. Object, fan, any other things, any other thought, I mean. This is very, very, very important concept in Java and all the meetings we saw and we're gonna to see. You need to know what's the root of all classes. What's the root of all classes? وكل الكلاس ضمنيا even if أنت قلت extend منها ولا لا ضمنيا it is a child of this class. Okay, So it's not the main class, guys. It's the object class. Okay? You need to get back to the meeting. We already explained this one. الobject class هو الروت إلى all classes. built-in classes, user-defined classes. It's the main. It's the root class of all of them. That means even if we don't say extend the object, which is ضمنيا shaped is going to extend the object. هو ضمنيا it's a child, it's a subclass from an object. That means toString it's a method from an object, but you need to re-implement it. You need to write your own implementation. This is what we did also in the previous lab, right, guys? So that's why we do override إلى toString. Okay? طيب. What we have next? Just take the time to move. Any question about this until the presentation is just moved to the next slide? No, Yazid. It is the object we talk about this. This, it means you are talking about the class you are working on. The object is the man. Okay. Either not moving or moving so fast. The object class is a built-in class. This يزيد نستخدمها إذا أنت داخل نفس الكلاس and you would like to use it. Okay. I just have a problem with the connection. It's just moving so slowly, so I'm just yes, Bushra. It's override من الobject class. Yes, I understand you now, Yazid. Okay, the third part, they ask us to create a concurrent class called rectangle, which is we already did, okay? A normal class that we working on since 105, a normal class, any class, it's called concurrent class, or you just call it class. But they need just to distinguish the concurrent class and the abstract class, okay? So a rectangle class, it is going to inherit what? It's going to inherit the shapes, and it's going to implement the colorful and also implement comparable interface. And it has two attributes or two variables, which is the width will color. The width is integer and the color is string. It has a multi-argument to initial attributes. So how many arguments we going to have here? We're going to have الwidth والcolor. Okay, and we're gonna to have the high at the end, which is gonna to come from the parent. We're gonna to see how we're gonna choose it. They ask us to do something. If you remember in the previous example, they asked us to invoke one argument constructor inside the zero argument. Now they ask us to do another thing, to invoke a super constructor inside the multi-argument. Okay? You remember, can we use a super argument inside the main? In another word, can we create an instance from superclass? Can we create an instance object from an abstract superclass? An abstract superclass. طيب غير ورود، مين عنده فكرة؟ Can we create an instance from an abstract superclass? اوكي، غير ورود وبشرى، مين عنده فكرة ثانية؟ Okay, more answers please. ورود انت تتكلمي، so you are talking about data type. الوي اللي انت كتبتيها السوبر تايب هنا معناها السوبر تايب in this way is going to be the data type. I'm not going to talk about the data type. I'm talking about creating a new instance مكان اللي انت كتبتيها subtype. طيب I really highly recommend you guys to get back to the meeting and review it. If a super class is an abstract, we cannot create an instance from it. We can only use it as a data type. Okay? So that's why if you would like to use a constructor, you can use it from inside a subclass as what we're going to do here. But inside the main, you cannot invoke it to create a new instance or object. In this way here, we are not going to create an instance from type super. We just get to invoke it to get to create a high. Okay, to initialize the high. The other things ask us to do is a zero argument constructor that initialize the attribute by itself value and make it white instead of red at the beginning. We get to have a getter and a setter to deal with the width and the color because they are private attributes inside the class, so we have to have a getter and a setter. We get to override two string methods again, okay? And then we will see the code. I know this is it is going to be quite long, so we're going to see it inside NetBeans, and you can ask me from there to go, okay? I'll back to this code soon inside the NetBeans, but let's see the final part. The final part, they ask us to create a test shape class, which is the class that is going to have the main methods. So it has all the work inside it. So we're supposed to create two objects, R1 and R2, from type rectangle, then print the area for those objects, change the color to red, and then print the status again for both of them. And finally, they ask us to print out a result of comparing R1 and R2 based on an area. Okay, we missed A here. Okay, so let's see the code. Inside the NetBeans. Any questions so far, guys? Okay, so we already explained this. So we have 4 classes, which is the colorful as an interface. So this is the colorful interface. Colorful has one abstract method. And even if we don't say abstract, if you remember, we have a slide on the meeting 7 tell you, even if you don't say it's abstract public, ضمنيا it is going to be there. Even if you have a variable that you don't mention that it's a final static variable, it is going to be final static variable. Okay? We're going to have a shape as an abstract class, and those all the method we already explained. 0 argument constructor, 1 argument constructor, الجيت للهاي والست إلى الهاي, calculate area, which is an abstract method in this case. Then we have a rectangle, and this is what we didn't explain inside the PowerPoint. So a rectangle is going to be extended shape, so it's a child from the shapes, and it's going to implement 2 things, which is allowed inside the Java. You cannot extend more than 1 class, but you can implement more than interface. So the colorful interface is a user defined. هذا اللي احنا عاملينها صح؟ The comparable is a built-in interface, which is a Java built-in interface. And we have to define what's the type it is going to get inside this interface. What's the data type going to get inside the comparable? What's the data type here? The data type is going to get inside the comparable interface. What's the data type? The data type is not always integer, string. Okay. Any other thoughts? ايش تعتقدوا يا طلاب؟ ايش هي النوع اللي راح نرسله الى الكمباربل؟ واضح مكتوب عندكم. ايش الداتا تايب؟ And I have a reason for asking this. I need to emphasize one thing. ايش هو الداتا تايب؟ One word. Okay. I have some right answers. So الداتا تايب هنا هي rectangle. الداتا تايب what is a rectangle مش الانتجر. الداتا تايب مش دائما, it's not always integer, string, array, list. That's why I'm asking you this, guys. I need you to try to get the right picture. احنا تكلمنا عنها لما نجي نعمل when you go to the test shape هنا for example. Okay, go to the test shapes. I'm going to show you something, and I need you to remember this, okay, guys? It is important to remember when you go to the main, and we did this before. You said, for example, circle object equal to new circle, right? In the sentence that I just said, circle object 1 equal to a new circle. What's the data type? I know it's saying it by words is not as easy as seeing it, but what the data type? If I say circle object 1 equal a new circle. Thank you. If I say XYZ object 1 equal to new rectangle. XYZ and then object 1 equal to new rectangle. ايش هو نوع الداتا type؟ Okay, so that's what I would like to emphasize to you guys, that the data type is not always at what some students think as integer, string, array. It can be the name of the class, and this is what we are working on. You see here, in the first sentence here, what's the data type of R1, of object R1 and R2? What's the data type of R1 and R2? Good. Okay. One of the rules we already studied during the meeting. The super class here is shape, right? Can we create an instance from an abstract class? Yes or no? An abstract class, we have a shape. Shape. Okay. This is an abstract class, OBG, equal to, can I create a new instance from type shape? Unfortunately, guys, no, we cannot create an instance from an abstract class. We explained this during the meeting. The abstract class, you see the error I got here? They said shape is abstract, cannot be nested. This is the main rule for an abstract class. You cannot create an instance. You cannot create an object. But you can use it as a data type. So I can say shape object new and then say rectangle. This is allowed. Okay, I say shape equal to a new shape. This is not allowed. I cannot create an instance from an abstract class, but I can use an abstract class as a data type. So the third line here, what's the data type of object? What's the data type of the object? OBG. OBG, what's the data type of OBG? Shape, thank you. So اللي قالوا إن هي rectangle, please ارجعوا إلى محاضرة الأمس واسمعوها من جديد. لكل اللي خربطوا واعتقدوا إن rectangle it is the data type, please get back to the meeting, listen to it again carefully to distinguish between creating an instance, okay, and use abstract as a data type. Okay, let's back to our topic. So what we're supposed to do here, we create two objects, R1 and R2. The data type here, it's rectangle. and we create an instance using a rectangle constructors. In the first time, we use the 3-argument constructor, and the second one, we use a 0-argument constructor. Then they ask us to go and print the area for object 1, R1, and R2. So we're going to call area, call area. So the call area here is coming from a rectangle or a shape. R dot call, which is calculate area. Calculate area, it is gonna to call calculate area from a shape or a rectangle. Okay, Nasreen, any other thoughts? So yes, it is going to calculate the area from a rectangle. Okay. After that, they ask us to make it red. We said R1 dot make it red. Inside the rectangle, we have the method called make it red. So we're gonna to call it normally and assign a red to color. Okay. After that, they ask us to print, so we call it toString method, which is not available inside a rectangle. So what is going to happen? Oh, sorry, we already implemented the toString. So it's going to call a toString, but inside a toString, they ask us to invoke a toString from super, which has the high equal. So this sentence, it is going to get back to the place where we have the super dot toString, and then in addition to that, we add a width and a color. Okay. The last things they ask us to compare. So how we compare? Either you say R1 dot compare to R2, or you can say R2 dot compare R1. We compare to, where did we implement this? Inside a rectangle. If we go to a rectangle, we get to override a method compare to. Okay. Now, anyone remember? We compare to, we get to override it. That means it's already implemented before, and we get to override it. So it's implemented from where? We compare to originally coming from where? We compare to method originally coming from where? Okay, any other thoughts? We compare to method coming from where? I haven't get the right answer so far. No, none of the answer is correct. We compare to method originally coming from where? It's not from the object class. It's not from the main class. It's not from the rectangle. It is not from any of the things that you are saying, guys. We compare two methods coming from where? Okay, I'll give you a hint. Take a look to the head of the class rectangle is coming from a shape? No. It is coming from an object? I said no. It is coming from a colorful? No. It's coming from exactly. It is coming from an interface of comparable. Compare to is a method coming from a comparable interface. So a comparable interface, it has a method called compare to. Okay? And that's why you're supposed to override it and create your own. And from the beginning, we said what we're supposed to send inside this comparable, the data type is going to be a rectangle. So we'll compare to, it is going to get the data type rectangle as well. How it's going to compare that object, it is going to calculate the area for the object that it's called. In our example, R1 said R1 dot compare to. That means this here is referred to object R1. Okay? If the R1, the area of the R1 is bigger than the area of the O, in our example, it's R2, we send the R2 as an argument. If it's bigger than R2 is going to return 1. If it's less than, it's going to return -1. If they are equal, it's going to return 0. Okay? Let's see the result of the code. So, R1, the first object, its area is 20. And R2 area is 0, 0. Why? If you remember in a T, R1, we already sent the width and the height. In R2, we didn't send any value inside the argument. That means it's going to assign 0 to the height and width. So as a result, we get a 0 for the area. Now we just going to print what is the color, print the area, the height, the width, and the color for both objects. And we comparing the R1 with R2, and we get 1 because the R1 has bigger area than the R2. Okay? So this was the activity of meeting 6. Please let me know if you have any question. أي سؤال بخصوص اللاب؟ You're welcome guys. Again يعني أتمنى أنكم ترجعوا وتعملوا ريفيو حق الميتنج. I know الميتنج it has heavy content, but you really need to practice it. لأنكم شفتوا بالإكزام يعني لو جالكم بالفاينل tracing you're not going to copy and paste anything. يعني أنا من الفهم اللي يحقي للطلاب اللي يواجهوه بخصوص الوقت، إن الوقت قصير، مفهوم الطلاب إن إحنا بالإكزام راح نعمل نسخ ولصق إلى الكود بالنت بينز or anywhere وراح يطلع لنا الأوتبوت وراح نعرف. The purpose of الإكزام مش انك تعمل نسخ ولصق الى الكود. على اساس كذا هم عملوها pictures by the way، على اساس انكم ما تقدروا تعملوا وتنسخوا، ففي طلاب رجعوا وعملوا لها تايبنج فضاع الوقت عندهم، فعلى اساس كذا قالوا ان الوقت ما يكفي. واقعا اكيد ما راح يكفي، لان مش هو هذا الهدف من السؤال. مش الهدف انك تنسخ وتلصقه وتشوف ايش هو الاوتبوت، مش الهدف انك ترجع تعمل له تايبنج وتحاول توجد ايش هو النتيجه، لانه مستحيل، ما راح يمديك الوقت. وانا عارفه ان اغلب الطلاب مش سريعين بالتايبنج، حتى لو كنت سريع راح يضيع الوقت منك وانت تعمل تايبنج. الهدف انكم تعملوا رايت تريسنج. فاساس كذا يعني ترجعوا الى المحاضرات بليز، تفهموها، ترجعوا الى المعمل، تحاولوا تعملوا تريسنج يدويا، لان بالفاينل ما راح يكون معاكم اجهزه. اي نو ان حتى بالتريسنج ياخذ وقت. انت كيف تقدر تقص هذا الوقت يا شريف؟ بالبراكتس. اول مره تعمل تريسنج راح ياخذ وقت منك اطول. next time is going to be easier. next time is going to be easier. بس والله تقرأ السلايدات every time you said okay I studied. أنا I guarantee you guys حتى لو ذاكرت 24 hours okay and you didn't practice it وحليته بيدك، ما راح تقدر تحل سريع وصح بالاختبار. حتى لو if it worked في الكويز ما راح تشتغل كويس بالفاينل. طيب the programming is a practice and I said this since the first class. practice practice practice. يعني انتوا امسكوا السلايدات وحاولوا تعملوا تريسنج الى اي كود موجود، اي كود من الاكواد. على اساس كذا انا احيانا انا اوريدي اخذت الحضور، اللي حاب يطلع يقدر يطلع. طيب اللي يبغى يطلع يقدر يطلع، تفضلوا. طيب again اساس كذا في بعض الاحيان انا اغطي لكم الانسر بالكلاس واحاول اخليكم انتم تحاولوا توجدوا ايش هي النتيجه، لان لازم انتم تحاولوا تحلوها. انت فقط تسمعها او تقراها it doesn't make any sense. It's not going to stay in your brain. I guarantee you. Okay, please practice it. تمام. التايم they're gonna I am trying to contact ال PCC but I don't think she's going to change the period of يعني الوقت اللي حق الكلاس ما راح يتغير. فانتوا لازم تحاولوا تتدربوا على التريسنج. help yourself فيها. طيب ايوه عارفه يا بتال انه هو ياخذ وقت، هم على اساس كذا عملوها. هي الفكره ان هم يعملوها تريكي. انا راح اكلم البي سي سي، بس هي الفكره ان يعني هم الفكره هم عاملينها كذا على اساس يتميز اللي جالس يعمل لها براكتس او لا. تمام. again I'll try to do my best until you get more time. بس I can guarantee you من جهتكم انتم حاولوا انكم تتدربوا. تمام. I know it's going to take time. يعني أنا أقول لكم أنا من جهتي راح أحاول إن هم يزيدوا الوقت أو يقللوا الأسئلة، وأنتم من جهتكم كمان حاولوا إنكم تعملوا براكتس أكثر. يعني ما تحطوا العبء دائما علينا إنه أوكي زيدوا الوقت، قللوا الأسئلة، سهلوا الأسئلة. at the same time أنتم تنسوا السلايدات وحطوها على جنب وتيجوا ترجعوا لها ليلة الاختبار. So we will do our work, we will try to do our best. بنفس الوقت انتوا try to do your best. اوكي. اذا ما في اسئله راح ننهي الميتنج. طيب